Welcome back, Shalligators, and welcome back to our weekly recap of the Kardashians. It's the last season of Keeping Up with Kardashians, and I was like, you know what? We're running out of material. And not that they're ever going to go away, but I figured we can break down each week's episode for some lessons because, yeah, as we always say, they're just this endless fountain of, like, life lessons. So this recent episode, we saw Kim and Khloe sort of, like, parent trap Scott and Kourtney into, like, tricking them into going on a date together, basically, because they want them to get back together. And Khloe and Kim were saying, like, you know, Kourtney acts like she doesn't care, but she would be devastated if Scott actually moved on. The implication being dating like 19-year-olds, 22-year-old is not really viable in terms of a relationship. We've also talked about that. We recently talked about, I think just last video, Scott possibly moving in with his 19-year-old girlfriend, Amelia Hamlin, and when we can know it's right to move on. I'm sorry, to move in. She should be moving on. But today, we're going to talk about nosy people, nosy rosies, meddlesome folks, whether it's family, friends, even like hairdressers who might accidentally, perhaps not meaning to, ask you questions that you don't feel comfortable answering. Or maybe it's a larger issue, like you're trying to figure out your situation with your Scott Disick and the intrusiveness of other people's opinions is kind of fucking you up. I feel like this has been sort of an ongoing theme recently. Because especially with the Kardashians, we talked about like Khloe and Tristan and what happens if you're getting back together with an ex everyone hates. We talked about that last year because those two are back together and probably engaged. Ugh. And now Kourtney and Scott are kind of going through the same thing. And that tells me most of us are too. And if we're not going through it yet, we probably will. So we're going to get into it. I'm going to give you guys some real world actionable tips on how to deal with nosy people without annihilating them, cutting them out, looking like a bitch, or blowing through your boundaries. Before we get started, I want to remind you to follow me on Instagram at ShallonXO. I always love it when you guys weigh in and suggest topics. Also, if you want to pick up some new drip, I'm wearing one of my hoodies today. I'm back in Montana just for like 48 hours. I'll tell you why in a minute. But yeah, I'm sorry. Pick up my merch. You can click the link in the bio. We have a whole bunch of really cool designs. They're a little edgy. They're a little spicy. Also, be sure to head over to Flays. Speaking of spicy, it's our uncensored platform. We're talking penis size, circumcisions, all sorts of stuff. Blowjobs, story times about my ex, Max, who you guys are very familiar with, you know, because we're back in each other's lives as friends. Like, I think we're in a really, really good place. But I'm very clued into the Scott and Kourtney dynamic because it reminds me of Max and I. And I did a whole video on, like, why we are still very much in each other's lives, because the big thing that my friends always say, it's like, Scott and Kourtney have kids, dude. Y'all don't have kids. But, you know, I've explained, or for me and Max, it's like our kid, you know, the thing that we like have in common and bond over is our careers. Like, they're very sort of parallel. He's a brand strategist. I'm an influencer. Those like go hand in hand. And so we really are a good resource for each other. But it's not a dynamic that a lot of people understand. And I understand why they don't understand it. I was talking to my best friend today, and I was like, yeah, you know, I've been talking to Max and hanging out, and she's like, And it's one of those things where, like, the more you try to explain yourself, like, the dumber you sound. You're like, no, really, like, it's totally fine. And she's like, You're like, no, it is. It is. And then I'm like, oh. And I said to her, and we've talked about this as a tip for dealing with people who have opinions about your relationship. I'm like, I validated her concerns. I was like, if the shoe was on the other foot, I would be saying exactly what you're saying. And I understand that it's all coming from a place of concern. For sure, you watched what he and I went through when we broke up, problems in our relationship. Like, I get it. But I also am in a much different emotional place right now. I don't feel compelled to date anybody. And I don't know, there's just not this like specter of expectation over the dynamic. We're legitimately really good friends. And that's great. That's fantastic. And she's like, okay, I get where she's coming from. But not everyone who's being nosy is going to get where you're coming from. You're not going to get where they're coming from. So here's how we can deal with this. But first, let's talk Scott and Kourtney. So the girl set contrived this like fake, phony trap of a date to get Scott and Kourtney back together. And Kourtney tried to prank them in reverse by like being in bed with Scott and hoping that they'd be like, oh, you slept together. And she's like, no, I'm just pranking you so that you'll like leave us alone and stop meddling. Like, we're not back together. Everything's fine. And you understand both sides. You understand where the sisters are coming from. Like, look, either like pee or get off the pot, right? Like, you're in this like endless weird dance of like flirting and jealousy and closeness and distance and spite. Just be together or don't. And then you understand Scott and Kourtney, who are like, we don't have to pick one side or another. We're fine where we are. And then the girls say things to her, as my friends have said to me. It's like, well, you might be fine, but maybe they're not fine. Maybe he's fine, but maybe you're not fine. The chances of both the Scott and the Kourtney, whether it's you and your ex or whatever, being totally fine is like actually pretty low. Like, usually there's going to be some sort of affection differential. And you know what Kourtney basically told him? Butt out, Rambo. And don't we get that? Don't we get that? When it comes to meddlesome people, it's very important to remember a psychological thing called inclusive fitness. Inclusive fitness. Have you ever heard that term before? Right? It's not very common. It's sort of an underused, I guess you could say the synonym for it would just be nosy love. So inclusive fitness means that if you are blood related to someone, you care so much more about their decisions. It's a very fancy word for like, you give a shit about the people you're related to, right? And this is, I mean, I feel like psychologists, sometimes they go kind of down the rabbit hole over explaining something that's like actually extremely obvious. They're like, because it's part of it's our genetic hardwiring to keep our family line alive, to keep our bloodline alive, not just us having babies and keeping our offspring alive, but keeping our sister's offspring alive, our mother's other offspring alive, you know, keeping the whole larger diffuse family dynamic alive. So we have to care about what our other blood relatives are doing. It's simply called family. It's called family. And in our modern age, our family is not our only family. I'm an only child. My mom's an only child. We're small. We're a small line. Our friends are our family. Like, I am just as plugged in, maybe more, to what my friends are doing as I am to what my family members are doing, because I consider them like they're my chosen family, which is in a way stronger than blood. Do you know the phrase, blood is thicker than water? Do you know what the full phrase is? Because we hear that phrase and we're like, yeah, like family over everything. No, that's not what that phrase means, actually. It is the blood of the covenant is thicker than the water of the womb. Wait, what? The blood of the covenant? That means the blood you shed in battle with someone is thicker than the amniotic fluids of the person who gave birth to you. It has a completely inverse meaning to what we think it does. It doesn't mean that family comes first. It actually means the opposite. It means that the family you choose, bonding through, not trauma, but like bonding through experience, you pick them based on commonalities. That is a stronger bond than simply, I don't know, man, she's my cousin or she's my sister, but we don't get along, or I have nothing in common with my dad. I can't stand him. Right? Isn't that interesting? I just love word stuff. Give me all the word stuff. It's like word porn, etymology porn. I love it. So, going back to the idea of inclusive fitness, why do I bring this up? Because a lot of nosy people are well-meaning. They are. Especially if it's your parents. Now look, bear with me on this, okay? Because I'm in this sort of weird in-between phase. Maybe it's not a phase, it's just my life. Like, I am a daughter still, and so it's like I have all the issues with my family that you guys have. It's like I'm still very much in daughter mode, but I'm old enough where so many of my friends have kids, and I'm sort of like several points removed kind of mom. Like, I can kind of see it, and I talk to you guys and you're my little babies. So it's like I can see things from the child point of view, but I can also see things from the parent point of view. And I can step into the parent role thinking about if I had a child. And I've told you guys before, like, I think I've joked about it, and I've joked about it with my friends. If I had a kid, I would raise them like super religious, like ultra Mormon. I am not a Mormon, nor am I particularly hyper religious, but I would raise my kid like that to protect them. The number one thing a parent wants is to protect their child, keep them alive, keep them safe. When they're little, it's literally, I need to keep this thing alive. And then the dynamic of safety becomes much more complex and diverse as the child gets older. Then it's like, I want to protect them from schoolyard bullies, a broken heart, sexual trauma, getting reamed out at work. I want them to have the corner office. And so I'm like, okay, if I can raise my kid like ultra Mormon, you're only sleeping with one person, that's the person you're going to marry. Okay, I'm going to spare them heartbreak, chlamydia, like pregnancy scares, like all this stuff. You get it. And when you look at what your parents do from that safety standpoint, it feels less intrusive and mean and judgmental. And if you're like, why are they so concerned with me marrying a nice Jewish boy? Because they see that as safe. Okay, I'm Jewish, he's Jewish, we're going to get together. The likelihood of getting divorced is lower. They see that as more safe. Why do they just want me to get married at all instead of go out in the world and work? Well, a lot of bad shit can happen when you work. You know, you think, oh, she's married, a guy's going to take care of her. They're looking at things from a safety point of view, right? So when you're dealing with someone meddlesome, try to reframe it in your mind. Is this coming from a place of safety and amelioration, right? Because you don't want to have this mean dynamic, peace or victory. Because if we're like, they're nosy because they're judging me and because they hate me, where's that going to get you? It's just going to get you further down the rabbit hole of being miserable. So try to do that. Try to reframe. The next thing you need to do, figure out what your trigger points are. All of us have different trigger points in terms of nosiness and being meddlesome. I joke all the time. I don't like to talk about how old I am. I just don't. Like, you can see my bank balance, my pap smear results. I don't care. Like, but that's just me. I'm like, I'm chronologically fluid. I might be 22 one day emotionally, and then I might be 65 watching my murder shows. So I don't like it when people are like, how old are you? How old are you? That's not a weird question, right? It's not. For me, I'm like, you can ask me almost anything else. But for some people, they don't want to be asked, oh, you ever been married? How many kids do you have? What kind of car do you drive? This is a big thing. Like, I never knew it was rude to ask somebody what kind of car they drove. I lived in New York for so long. I'm not like a car person. So I find it's very interesting. Like, what car do you drive? Oh, but guys out here, if you ask them that, they're like, it's like asking, how much money do you make? Same thing with, what do you do? Like, as a New Yorker, that's the number one thing you ask someone. I'm Shallon. I'm a YouTuber. You're so-and-so. What do you do? Because our job is our identity living in New York, right? Other places you go, it feels very intrusive. Because again, it's like, how much money do you make? You're a pharmacist? Oh, I don't mean it like that. But I have had to pull back and become cognizant that my well intentions are not always received as such by the person who I'm talking to. And that's okay. Just like there's things I don't want to be asked. Oh, like, do you live near your dad? Like, people don't know that my father's dead. And I don't fault them for that. I don't fault them for asking me like about my age or if I've been married or kids or whatever. It's like they're coming from their own place where that's a completely benign question. So again, reframe and don't look at this person as your enemy. Looking at them simply speaking through their own filter, either of safety or perhaps just curiosity. Or a lot of it, sometimes, it's just small talk. People don't know what to do. Like, one of my friends, she was engaged or had just gotten married. And I was like, so do you think you're going to have kids? And she like hit the fucking roof. She's like, everyone is asking me that. Everyone's asking me that. And I was like, I'm so sorry. I was like, I literally just didn't know what else to ask you. I don't care. I don't like kids. I hope you don't. Gross, right? You have great nipples. Just leave them the way they are. But I was just like, bleh. I was just like word vomiting out because I was just kind of anxious and small talking. So sometimes that's what it is. But decide on your triggers beforehand and then decide on the response. One example I've read about is a girl, she was a cutter. I was a cutter. I'll do a video on it. But she has like very visible scars on her arms and she gets very like mad if people ask like, oh, what happened to your arm, right? And she's like, why are people asking me this? This is so meddlesome. And the therapist, there was an article about the therapist was like, they don't mean any harm. And they look at a scar as like, it's concern. Oh my gosh, are you okay? What happened? It's empathy. Or, wow, you survived something. That's really cool. What happened? You know, she's like, you're looking at it from this like attack standpoint and it's not. So girl, that's okay. You can interpret it as however you want, but you need to come up with something to say in your back pocket. Like, you know, it's a disorder I went through when I was younger. Just boring, depressing, blah, I've dealt with it. Or like, I got dragged into the woods by a pack of wild dogs. You know, it happens. Make a joke out of it and keep it moving. But if you're caught in the moment, in this emotional state of stress, like, oh, fuck, what am I going to say? Whatever you say is not going to be the thing that's best to say. It's going to come out mean, too truthful. And you're like, I was a cutter. I was a cutter from like 13 to 19. I was a cutter. And then the other person might not know how to respond. Then you're like, fuck, why did I say that? Or I didn't want this person to have that information about me, right? So decide your triggers, whatever they are. Decide how you're going to handle it. Triggers and intrusiveness, they're boundaries, right? And what do we say about boundaries? The time to set a boundary is not when someone's already on your property. That's not the time to build the fence or the moat or the guard tower when you can already see the enemy advancing. You have to do that ahead of time. You can't get mad at people for crossing your boundaries if you haven't set them, right? But let's say it's a situation where these people are much closer to you. It's not the hairdresser, it's not the stranger on the bus, it's mom. And it's another situation, when are you getting married? Don't you want to have kids? Forewarned is forearmed. Try to notice what triggers her nosiness. Is it, you're talking about cousin Kara and her 2 new twins, and then it's always like, and when are you thinking about, okay? If you hear that cousin Kara is coming up, you know that mom's going to ask, hey, you know what? Oh gosh, I have to take this call in the other room. I'm going to help with the dishes. Let me clear the table. Sometimes those just very simple logistical switches can avoid a lot of drama. Simply remove yourself from the environment, right? That's okay. Next thing to do, tell the truth. Tell the truth. If you're like, Mom, I don't know when I'm having kids, and I feel like we've had this discussion a lot, then you validate their fears. I understand you're asking me that from a safety standpoint. You want me to be happy. You want my life to be figured out. I need you to trust that my life is being figured out by me, right? And that I'm being very honest with myself about how I feel and whether I want kids, and I'm figuring it out. And I also need you to trust that I believe my life is on schedule. Do you trust me? Put it right back on them. If your mom says, no, I don't trust you. Okay, you can be like, well, why? She should have some viable answers. If she's like, well, you're an Oxy addict and you've dropped out of 3 different junior colleges and you're living in our basement and you can't hold a job. Mm-hmm. Bitch has got a point, right? So you don't really have a leg to stand on of butt out of my business if your business is their business because you're still sponging off them. This goes back to independence. Why we need to be independent, financially independent, because then we can say, I'm sorry, I'm closed for feedback. My life, where I live, what I buy, it is not your concern. I don't need you to bail me out. I've got a financial plan. I don't need all this career advice that I didn't ask for. I've got a career path. I've got a mentor. I'm doing things, right? I've got Shallon Lester on the internet. Then you can have a leg to stand on. But no, if you're like, don't ask me about my business. Can you pay my credit card this month? Doesn't work like that, sweetheart. The person with the money has the power. And they have the power to inquire about their charity case. If you've tried these tactics, then it's time to state your discomfort. Because like I said, a lot of people being nosy, they don't realize what they're saying is meddlesome or that it's crossed some boundary. Not like you need to like hand out a pamphlet like every time you interact with me. Here are my boundaries, updated for today, like a prefix A menu at a restaurant. But people can unknowingly wade into dangerous waters. So let's say that we'll start big. Let's say it's your family that's being meddlesome about something. Scott and Kourtney, talking to Khloe and Kim. Like, hey, I know you guys are coming from a good place, and I know you want Scott and I to figure this out because it's tidier, right? And I'm sure you look at how we are and think, oh my God, what a messy dynamic. I don't feel it's messy. If he does, well, I'm not in charge of his feelings, and he can communicate those to me. Thus far, he has not. So from where I stand, we're good, okay? And it makes me very uncomfortable when this is constantly a subject. They might not know that, to say, this makes me uncomfortable. This makes me feel like you don't trust me and you think I'm dumb. If someone said that to you, Shallon, you make me feel like I'm dumb when you're giving me advice about guys. I'd be like, I'm so sorry. I don't think you're dumb. People are naturally going to resist that label applied to them. You think I'm stupid. No, I don't. So they're going to wind it back because they don't want you to think that about, right? So this is good. This is kind of a little reverse psychology trick. It makes me feel like you don't trust me. It makes me feel like you're not proud of me when you're always grilling me about when I'm getting that next promotion. I wish you could be like, I'm so proud of you for making junior partner. You don't always need to ask, well, when are you making senior partner? And I know that you're asking that because you know I'm capable of that. I know that I am too. And when I need that advice and encouragement, you're the first person I'm coming to. But for now, I don't really want this to be a topic. I want us to enjoy where we're at. What kind of response could a reasonable person have to something like that? You're meeting them with empathy, understanding, validating their concerns, logic, holding up your own boundaries and your comfort zone. And if they come back to you, well, you know what? I'm just saying, your cousin has already made senior partner, so you should too. Okay, remember what I just said? What kind of reasonable person will respond poorly? If they respond poorly, they're not reasonable. Now we deploy consequences. We can't get mad at people for breaching boundaries they don't know about. But once we do set that boundary, hey, I don't want to talk about my weight. I'm working on it. I'm good, okay? I understand that I'm bigger. I'm in this body 24 hours a day. Don't need the input. If it's still coming up, then we deploy consequences. What are those consequences? I don't know, girl. What are they? Right? Someone comes over your fence line. What are you going to do? Is it, I call the cops, I shoot them, I throw them in the moat with the alligators? What is it? You, just like you have to determine your triggers and set your fence line, you have to determine an outcome if those triggers are breached, boundaries are breached, people aren't listening and respecting you. It's like, Mama, I got to get off the phone. I can't do Sunday dinners. Why? Because no matter what I put on my plate, you guys grill me about what I'm eating and how fat I am. That's why. It makes me uncomfortable. I don't want to be in that environment. I'm sorry. We can get coffee. We can do things that don't involve eating. But if you want to see me, you got to lay off about my body. All right? Again, reasonable. If their response is not reasonable to this, then more and more consequences are deployed. And typically that looks like withdrawing. Okay, I'll see you guys in a month. I'll maybe only see you at Christmas. I'll see you at my sister's wedding. It's hard, man. It's so easy to talk about boundaries and deployment of consequences when it ain't you, right? I'm watching one of my friends go through this with her family literally as we speak. I can't come home for Easter. I don't want to, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, deploy that boundary. And if the consequence is they flip out, you know what, guys? I thought I was going to come home next week. It's actually going to be a month. I'm sorry. This is stressful for me. And I'm already under so much stress. I can't add this on. I really wish you had responded to me saying I can't come home for Easter with empathy. Be like, hey, I get it. You're so stressed with work. You need a break. But you didn't. So that was really hurtful for me. Lead with the feelings. Lead with the feelings. Put it on them. You've hurt my feelings by breaching my boundaries, by not respecting what I'm telling you, by meddling. You've hurt me. You've hurt me. People don't know that stuff like that hurts. They don't. And if they might be like, why? Oh, it hurts you that I'm asking you when you're having kids? Yes. Let me tell you why. But you have to know that answer ahead of time. You have to be able to accurately convey that. So it's not like, stop asking me about this. You're going to look hysterical. No one's going to understand. When people can understand our reaction, they're much more likely to be tolerant of it. But again, if they're not, that's a data point. Why are you kowtowing to someone who is not empathetic, not reasonable, not tolerant, not respectful? Maybe the answer is stepping back, taking a big break from this. I wouldn't blame Kourtney if she's like, you know what? Scott and I are the kids, and the kids, we're moving to Texas for a few years. We just need to get away from you guys. There's a reason people leave their hometowns, right? It's so tough to be in an environment where, yeah, you have a lot of opinions coming in, and yeah, they're coming from a good place. But it doesn't always matter because then you lack the room to figure things out yourself. So that's another thing you can say, hey, I need to figure this out myself. Even if I arrive at the wrong conclusion, I'm not going to ask anyone to save me or pick up the pieces, right? Hey, if I go for this promotion and I don't get it and I realize I have to leave the company, I've got a financial plan in order, okay? People need to know that you've thought about something. And if your knee-jerk reaction is, I don't want to talk about it, I don't want to talk about it, they're going to be like, okay, she's putting on blinders, she's not thinking about this, she's not thinking about her future, If you're like, I don't want to talk about it because I've thought a lot about it. I've talked about it in therapy, I've made lists, I've made plans, I'm good. When I'm ready to share those plans, you'll be the first to know. But I'm still working out some things on my own. And I need to be able to trust myself and stand on my own 2 feet in this decision. Whether it's an ex, a job, where I live, my hair color, my weight, whatever. So let people know that's what's going on. They don't need to see how the sausage is made, as they say. They don't need to see the inner workings. They don't need to be on the forefront of every single decision. And here's what we can't do. We can't ask people for advice all the time and then accuse them of meddling. That's not how that works, right? We got to be good at solving things on our own. We talk about this a lot. Going back to the micro intuition, Pepsi or Coke, big city, small town. I need to practice hearing my inner voice and aligning with my own truth and what works for me and what doesn't. So that when people have an opinion, I can be like, law school, I thought about that, but I'm really not good at contracts. I'm not really good at detail work. I like arguing. I like mediation. I'm going to become a professional mediator. I don't have to go to law school. Oh. Then people are more likely to listen to you. If you're like, yeah, I've done that work. And if they're not listening to you, then their opinions are more likely to bounce off of you. Well, I know they think that's what's good for me, but I actually know myself really well now. I've worked with my traumas. I'm looking at all the monsters under the bed. I'm throwing a light on everything. I'm okay being by myself. I'm doing the hard decisions, right? So I get why they think I should be a lawyer, but I know me, and I know that's actually maybe not the best path for me. So I'm not mad that they're suggesting, because I get it. And therefore, if I say my truth and they don't like it, hey, they don't have to. I have to like it. I have to like me. I have to like my decisions. I want to know your thoughts on Scott and Kourtney. Do you think they'll end up together? Maybe. I do think she'd be devastated if he dated someone else. Like married and had a kid. I think she'd be fucking devastated. He's probably like injecting his girlfriends with Depo-Provera when they're not looking. Let me know the times people have been really meddlesome with you. How did you get people to back off? What worked? What didn't? What made things worse? What made things better? We will be back with more videos. I'll see you later, Shalligators.